This is an instructional video for M314.
So we've been working in our unit on probability. So far, we've gotten pretty deep into some simple parts of probability. But now it's time to start looking a little bit closer, and a little bit deeper into probability. You guys remember when we started with probability, we started off discussing how probability ranged between 0 and 1. So we learned how to describe probability first with fractions, and then we converted those to decimals, which got us to talking about probability in terms of percentages. And what those percentages has enabled us to do was start using some vocabulary words. Words like likely, highly likely, certain, unlikely. And this led us to the vocabulary words.
So we've got this probability, and we've got these vocabulary words, and we have to understand that this is the most important part. The numbers are important and learning how to use them, but when we talk about probability and we read these probability problems, it's important that we understand and be able to interpret what we're reading, and knowing these vocabulary words is where we start. So remembering words like event, outcome, likely, unlikely, these are all just as important as the numbers. And we're going to work with the numbers first.
But the numbers are where we went next. We started off with the coin toss. We learned the fraction for a coin toss, 1/2, converting that to 0.50, 50% chance in a coin toss. That was pretty simple. I think we got that down really well.
Then we moved on to rolling a die. A few more possible outcomes, but still just one event. It was pretty easy for us. We even explored looking at two dice.
We stepped it up a notch after looking at dice. We went on to a deck of cards. We saw how getting the cards you might want for a poker game and analyzing the chances of getting those cards might influence how you actually play in a game of cards. And we looked at how you might play or use those chances in any other games you play.
Remember how we discussed our own Churchill Downs right here in Louisville, and how probability and odds come into play every day at the track.
Then remember, we talked about that city, a whole city that was built based on probability, based on chance and odds, and how it grew out of the desert. Remember that one? We've had a good time learning about probability this way, using coins and games and cards and talking about this fun stuff. But now we got to start looking at probability in the real world, because probability is used in a lot of places that you might not think of. Probability is used for elections. Probability is used in marketing campaigns. They use it to figure out how to advertise and who to push their advertising money towards. They use it in the stock market all the time to figure out how to invest their money. Your mom and dad, their car insurance. That's how insurance companies figure out how much they're going to charge for car insurance, using probabilities for certain events or outcomes that might happen, especially thinking about car accidents. So we're going to start learning about how to analyze or how to figure out these large probabilities, where there's a lot of possible outcomes. What are some of the ways that these are probably figured out? And so the first thing you're going to do is look at as a group is you're going to look at the possibility of where you're going to roll two die. The first one's going to be blue. The second one's going to be red. I want you guys to get together and see what you can come up with in some ways to put together and figure out the number of possible outcomes so that we can start to work on the probability.
But I'm not going to leave you guys high and dry. So here's two hints for you. Take a look at these two things. First this, and now this. And these ought to be a couple clues and some things we've used before that might help you figure this out. So pause it. We're going to pause here. And you guys take a few minutes, and then we'll come back and work on this.
And some of you saw the table. This might be the first idea that you had, and that's really good. This is a great way to think it out. However, this is a little too difficult to read, and I think there's a couple other ways we could probably break this down and figure it out a lot quicker and a lot easier. But if you did it this way, that is a great way to have thought about it. But let's look now at a couple of ways that I did it and see if that's what any of you came up with.
So you were asked in your groups to look at the scenario that you have one blue dice and one red die. And you're going to roll the blue die first and the red die second. And try to find a way to analyze the probabilities for when you roll two dice. But we need to know, first of all, how could we look at this or find a way to get our number of outcomes so we could look at the probability. One of the first things that you could have come up with that we've discussed is a tree diagram. And we could start with the blue die, and we would list all the possibilities. We kind of did that back with our coin toss. So what are all the possibilities when we roll our first die, the blue die? So the blue, we could have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or a 6. That's all of the possibilities when we roll our blue die. So then we're going to go look at what would happen when we roll our red die. Well, if we say, for instance, had a 1 on our blue die, what are all the possibilities for the red die? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Same with the 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And quickly, for each, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what is our total number of possible outcomes? 6 times 6, 36 possible outcomes. So we can start picking an event that we want to happen, because now that we have our outcome, we can start figuring out our probability. Another possibility of how we could analyze rolling two dice, we could use a table. Now we could pretend that our column going down is all the results that happen when we roll our blue. Then we could take across the top, it could be all the results of what happens when we roll a red. When we roll a blue, we got a possibility of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. When we do a red, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And what's great about a table is we can see, what if we roll a 1 on the blue and a 1 on the red? What do we get? We get a 2. A 1 and a 2 on the red, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A table is actually going to show us what the actual results of rolling the die are. We'll just fill a few more in. And this can actually make it a little bit easier for us to figure out what and see how many of the possible results we're going to have. But we still, when we count our squares, 6 across, 6 down, 6 times 6, we still see that we have 36 outcomes.